I wish I could say I handled it well. The whole, my roommate's brother is hot and kind and unexpectedly charming thing. But the truth is, I was kind of a mess. Not on the outside. Outwardly, I was still the same guy. Luke, chill, a little sarcastic, good at pretending nothing ever rattled me. But inside, I was on fire. Constantly second-guessing, every glance, every word, every tiny interaction with Ezra, like it was part of some bigger puzzle I didn't know how to solve. I didn't even know what I was hoping for. He was just there, all the time, taking up space. And not just physically. I'd walk into the kitchen, and he'd be sitting there barefoot with a mug of coffee, reading something way too dense for a Saturday morning. I'd say something dumb, and he'd laugh. Not politely, but genuinely. And I'd feel that stupid flutter in my chest. It wasn't just attraction, it was worse. I liked talking to him. I liked that he listened. I liked that he made space for silence without it being weird. And it was getting harder to hide that I liked all of it. One night, it was late. Past midnight, Gabe had gone out with coworkers and texted that he was crashing at someone's place. I'd stayed in, half by choice, half because I couldn't stop wondering if Ezra would be around. He was. We ended up on the couch again, not even trying to watch anything this time. Just talking. About dumb stuff. Work. Music. Places we'd lived. He told me he'd been in a relationship that ended badly a year ago, but didn't elaborate. I didn't push. At one point he asked, "You always this closed off?" I blinked. "What?" He shrugged. "I feel like you're always watching The Room." But never really in it. It hit harder than I expected. I didn't know what to say. He didn't press, just kind of smiled, like he knew he'd caught me off guard. And that's when I realized I wanted to tell him everything. But I didn't. Instead, I got up and went to the kitchen to refill my water. Because I'm a coward, and also because I needed air. When I came back, he was lying down. Not asleep, just stretched out across the couch, one arm behind his head, shirt rucked up a little from the movement. He looked at me, eyes soft in the dim light. "There's room," he said, patting the space next to him. I hesitated. Then I lay down beside him, carefully, casually, like it meant nothing. But it didn't feel like nothing. The couch wasn't that big. Our legs touched, our shoulders. The whole side of my body was warm from his. We didn't say anything. For 10, maybe 15 minutes, we just lay there, quiet, breathing in sync, pretending the world outside didn't exist. And then he turned his head. Just slightly. I could feel the shift. "You okay?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Yeah, I lied. He didn't push. But I felt his fingers brush mine. Light, barely there. A test. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. I let our hands stay like that. Not holding. Just touching. But it felt bigger than anything else that had happened between us so far. Eventually he pulled away. Slow, careful, then sat up. "I should crash," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. I nodded, heart still thudding. "Night," he added. "Night." He didn't look back as he walked down the hall. And I didn't sleep much that night. Not because something happened, but because something almost did. And that was worse. After that night on the couch, things changed. Not dramatically. Not in any obvious world-shifting way. But something subtle had shifted. Like the floor beneath us had tilted a few degrees, and now everything felt a little off balance. He still made coffee in the morning, still hogged the hot water in the shower, still leaned against the kitchen counter like he was posing for a lifestyle blog. But now, he looked at me longer. Held eye contact for a few seconds more than necessary, and sometimes when we passed each other in the hall, our shoulders would brush. Not hard, just enough to register. Just enough to make me wonder if it was on purpose. Gabe didn't seem to notice anything. If he did, he didn't say. And me? I kept pretending. Pretending I wasn't always aware of Ezra's presence. That I didn't listen for the sound of his laugh from the other room. That I didn't wait for him to end up on the couch at the same time as me. night after night, always a little closer than the last time. It got to a point where I had to avoid him, just to keep my head on straight. One night I stayed late at work on purpose, sat at my desk staring blankly at an empty spreadsheet, waiting for time to pass. Then I took the long way home, grabbed a drink at a bar I didn't even like, just to be somewhere else. By the time I got back to the apartment, it was past midnight. The lights were off. I assumed he'd gone to bed. Good. I needed space. But when I stepped into the living room, I saw him. He was lying on the couch, hood up, earbuds in, phone screen glowing faintly in the dark. He didn't see me at first, just scrolled. One hand behind his head, bare feet hanging off the edge of the cushions. I froze. Not because of how he looked, though that didn't help, but because seeing him there, alone in the quiet, made something twist in my chest. He noticed me eventually, pulled one earbud out. "Hey," he said, voice low. "Didn't think you were coming home tonight." "Got caught up," I muttered. He sat up a little. "You okay?" "Yeah, just tired." He nodded, but didn't move. I should have gone to my room, should have said goodnight and shut the door and kept the boundary that was already hanging by a thread. But instead, I sat down. Not close, but not far either. He looked at me for a second, then smiled. Soft, like he knew something I didn't. We sat there in silence for a while, the kind that felt full, not awkward, like the air between us was saying everything we weren't. Eventually he spoke. "You ever think about how different life would be if one thing had gone another way?" I looked over. "Like what?" He shrugged. "Like if you'd taken a different job, or moved in with someone else, or if I hadn't ended up here." I didn't answer, because, yeah, I'd been thinking about that. A lot. He turned to face me fully, one leg tucked under him. "I'm glad I came here." I forced a smile. "Yeah?" He nodded. "You've been really easy to be around." I didn't know what to do with that sentence. My heart was pounding in that tight internal way that doesn't show on the surface but feels like you're vibrating. I turned to look at him and found him already looking at me. His eyes dropped to my mouth for half a second too long. I didn't move, he didn't either. But we both knew something had happened. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just some passive crush. Ezra was flirting with me. Maybe not openly. Maybe not in the let's kiss way. But in the way he stayed up late when he didn't need to. In the way he watched me when he thought I wasn't looking. In the way he didn't look away when he should have. He stood up a minute later. "I'm heading to bed," he said, voice quieter now. I nodded, trying not to let any of what I was feeling show. "Night." He hesitated. Then, like it was nothing, he reached out and touched my shoulder. Just a light squeeze. Then he disappeared down the hall. The door clicked shut behind him. And I sat there in the dark, heart pounding, mind racing, wondering how long I could keep pretending this wasn't turning into something else. After that night, everything got weird. Not bad weird, not tense or awkward, just different. Ezra started sleeping in later, like he wasn't in a rush to be anywhere. We'd cross paths more in the mornings. Him, shirtless, yawning, making coffee half asleep, while I tried not to stare at the line of his back or the waistband of his joggers riding low. He'd joke more, ask me what I was doing that day. Sometimes he'd cook enough breakfast for both of us and just slide a plate in front of me without a word. And he never asked why I looked at him the way I did. I never asked why he looked back. We were in this in-between space, closer than we should be, but never close enough, like a song stuck in its build-up, never dropping. Until the night it finally did. It started with thunder, real, rolling, windows-rattling thunder. I was in bed, scrolling aimlessly, the storm outside making it hard to sleep. Rain smacked the glass hard enough to make me glance over, and then I heard it, a soft knock on my bedroom door. "Yeah?" I called out. The door opened just enough for him to peek through. His hair was messy. He wore a plain black t-shirt and those same gray shorts he always slept in. "Power's out in the living room," he said, voice low. "Wi-Fi is dead." I laughed. "That's what happens when you live in a 90s apartment building." He hesitated. "You awake?" "Barely." He opened the door more. "Can I just chill in here for a bit?" I nodded. "Yeah, sure." He walked in and shut the door behind him. That part felt louder than it should have. He didn't sit at the desk, didn't take the chair in the corner. He sat on the bed, right next to me, and then leaned back against the headboard like he'd done it 1,000 times before. "You always sleep with your phone brightness that low?" he asked, nodding at my screen. "I have eyes," I muttered. "I'm trying to keep them." He chuckled, and then we just sat there. Two guys, in a dark room, in a thunderstorm, on one bed. I kept telling myself it wasn't anything, that he was just bored, that the rain had made everything feel more intimate than it actually was. But then he spoke. "You mind if I stay here tonight?" I turned to look at him. He was already watching me. "You want to sleep in here?" I asked carefully. He nodded once. "Yeah." "On the bed?" "Where else?" I didn't say anything, didn't move, didn't breathe. He took that as a yes. He shifted down, pulling the blanket over himself like it was the most normal thing in the world. His shoulder touched mine as he got settled. Our legs brushed once, then again, before finding comfortable space. It wasn't a big bed, and neither of us seemed bothered by that. "You okay?" he asked quietly, his voice closer now. "Yeah," I said, my throat dry. "Just surprised." He turned his head, his voice softer. "By what?" "That you're here." He didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then, "You don't want me here?" I turned to face him. His face was half lit by the screen glow, all angles and soft focus. "I didn't say that." He watched me for a beat. "Good." And then he reached under the blanket and slowly, deliberately, found my hand. Not by accident. Not just brushing fingers. He held it. He didn't look at me when he did it. Just laced our fingers together like it had been waiting to happen. I didn't pull away. I couldn't. My chest felt like it was cracking open, slowly and carefully from the inside out. We laid there for a long time. Just like that. Hand in hand. Breathing in sync. And when I finally drifted off, it was to the sound of rain and the soft pressure of his thumb brushing mine, like he was still making up his mind. The next morning, I woke up warm. Really warm. There was a second where I didn't remember, where the line between dream and reality blurred just enough to keep me still, my eyes half closed, my brain fogged with sleep. And then I felt it, a body pressed against mine, an arm around my waist, breath soft against the back of my neck. Ezra. He was still here, and we were still like this. His chest was pressed to my back, firm and steady. His leg tangled loosely over mine. His hand, God, his hand, was resting low on my stomach, fingers splayed like they'd landed there on instinct. I didn't move, didn't want to. It felt too natural, too right. But then I felt it. His fingers twitch, then flex, slowly, like he was waking up too. His thumb brushed just under the hem of my shirt, dragging lightly across bare skin. It wasn't accidental. I swallowed. He shifted behind me, closer if that was even possible. His breath hitched, just slightly, against my neck. "You awake?" he whispered. I nodded. He didn't move his hand, didn't pull away. Instead, he exhaled, and I felt the warmth of it against my skin. Then his hand slid a little lower, still tentative, still slow, but enough to make my whole body go rigid with awareness. "Is this okay?" he asked, voice soft, careful. I turned my head slightly, just enough to see him over my shoulder. "Yeah," I said, barely audible. "It's okay." He nodded, but didn't say anything. His eyes flicked between mine, searching for something, and then, finally, he leaned in. Not fast, not hungry, just close. and kissed the corner of my mouth. It wasn't even a full kiss, more like a question. I turned more, met him halfway, and kissed him back. That first real kiss was slow, quiet, like we were both afraid to break the moment, like we'd both been thinking about it for too long to rush it now. His hand found my jaw, mine curled around the back of his neck. Our bodies stayed close, pressed together, the warmth between us building by the second. When we finally pulled apart, neither of us moved right away. His forehead rested against mine. "I didn't plan this," he said softly. "Me either." He smiled. "I just couldn't stop thinking about you." I felt like I was floating. Not from the kiss, not just from the closeness, but from the fact that he meant it. The next few minutes were quiet. He brushed my hair back, kissed me again. Slower this time, deeper. My hands slipped under his shirt, tracing the line of his ribs, the curve of his back. He made a soft sound when I touched him there, something between a sigh and a hum. We didn't rush anything, we didn't take anything off, it wasn't about that. It was just touch. And meaning. And finally, letting ourselves feel the thing we'd both been dodging for weeks. Eventually we pulled back, breathless. He looked at me like I was something he didn't know he could have until now. "I should have done that a long time ago," he murmured. "You kinda did," I teased, thinking back to all the not quite touching. He smirked. "Yeah. But now it's real." After that morning, we didn't really talk about it. Not because it didn't mean anything, but because it meant everything. And neither of us knew what to do with that yet. Ezra slipped out of my bed after a while, mumbling something about coffee and needing to pee. I watched him go, the back of his shirt sticking to his shoulder blades, his hair still a mess from sleep, and kissing, and maybe a little from me running my fingers through it. I stayed there, staring at the ceiling, wondering how the hell I was supposed to act normal now. Spoiler, I couldn't. But neither could he. That day, we barely said anything while Gabe was around. Just polite roommate small talk. But the second Gabe left to run errands, Ezra found me in the hallway and pressed me gently against the wall, his mouth already on mine before either of us spoke. We kissed like it was a secret. Because it was. Not in a scandalous way, not like we were hiding some forbidden thing, but because it was ours. Because it was new. Fragile. Still forming. We kissed in the kitchen late at night, behind the fridge door like teenagers. We kissed in the hallway when no one else was home. He started brushing his teeth in my bathroom instead of the guest one. His stuffed deodorant, hair product, his favorite sweatshirt, started living in my room without us saying it out loud. One night, I came home late from work and found him asleep in my bed, curled up on my side like he'd been waiting for me and lost the battle. He had one of my t-shirts on. I just stood there for a second, watching him breathe, chest rising and falling slowly, the way his lips were slightly parted. The crease in his forehead, like even in sleep, he was holding something in. I changed quietly and slid into bed beside him. And without waking, he shifted toward me, like instinct. His arm found my chest, his leg hooked over mine, like he belonged there, like I did too. The next morning, I woke up to him staring at me, like full on, eyes open, head propped on his hand, staring. "You good?" I asked, voice still thick with sleep. He nodded, but didn't look away. "You're dangerous," I blinked. "What?" "You make me want things." My throat went dry. Like what? He didn't answer right away, just leaned in and kissed me. Soft and slow, like the question itself was the answer. That day, we went grocery shopping together. Like a couple. We didn't hold hands, didn't make it obvious. But at one point, I asked him which peanut butter to get, creamy or crunchy, and he took the jar from my hand and tossed it in the cart. "Crunchy. Always," he said. And just like that, we were arguing about peanut butter like we'd been doing it for years. It was stupid. It was amazing. He started falling asleep in my room more nights than not. We never made a big deal of it. He just stayed. Every time. And with every night that passed, the line between roommates and something else got blurrier, until it wasn't just kissing anymore. It was touch. All kinds. His hands under my shirt. my mouth on his shoulder, his fingers trailing down my chest while we whispered in the dark about nothing. About everything. He made me laugh in bed, right in the middle of making out, because I said his breath smelled like garlic. He made me feel safe, open, wanted, in ways I didn't even realize I'd been craving. But we still didn't talk about what we were. Not yet. We didn't need to. At least, not then. It was a Tuesday when things shifted again. Ezra had been living with us for almost a month by then. Gabe still called it crashing, but it was obvious to anyone paying attention that Ezra wasn't going anywhere. Especially not from my bed. We hadn't made any big declarations. No labels. No what are we conversation. But he kissed me like I was his, touched me like I belonged to him, and I let it happen, every time. That Tuesday, Gabe had plans. Drinks with a coworker, or maybe a date. I don't remember. What I do remember is Ezra texting me mid-afternoon. Ezra, what time are you home? Me, around 7. Why? Ezra, can I cook for you? Me, you're asking me? Ezra, just being polite, but also, yeah, I'm making dinner. When I walked in later that night, the apartment smelled like garlic and herbs and something lemony. The lights were low. Music was playing, and Ezra was standing at the stove barefoot, wearing a fitted black tee and jeans that honestly should have been illegal. He turned when he heard me, smiled. Hey, he said. Hey, I echoed, suddenly very aware of the way my heart had just picked up pace. I dropped my bag, kicked off my shoes, walked into the kitchen. You really did all this? He shrugged. Figured you'd be tired, figured you'd be hungry, figured I like feeding you. I stared at him, because it wasn't just dinner, it was a gesture. Something people do when they care, not when they're just messing around. He handed me a glass of wine, then kissed me lightly on the cheek, and in that moment I realized we weren't just got some relations. We were something. After dinner, after the dishes and the second glass of wine and the leftovers packed into Tupperware, we sat on the couch, close like always, but quieter. He reached over and took my hand, not sneaky this time, not secret, just held it. I've been thinking, he said after a while. My stomach flipped. Yeah? I didn't come here looking for this. You know that, right? I nodded. But now that it's happened, he looked at me. I don't want to pretend it's not real. I felt everything in me tense and relax at the same time. I don't either, I said. He squeezed my hand. I like you, Luke. That sentence hit harder than I expected, because it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some big, poetic moment. It was simple. Honest. I turned toward him, leaned in, and kissed him slow, then slower. His hands slid under my shirt, up my sides, familiar now, but still new enough to make my skin buzz. He pulled me onto his lap like it was second nature, and I straddled him there on the couch, kissing him deeper, hands in his hair, heart pounding. We didn't speak much after that. We didn't need to. That night, we didn't just sleep together. We slept together, his arms around me, my head on his chest, his breath in my hair. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, I fell asleep without that restless feeling in my gut, because he was here, and I wasn't pretending anymore. A few days later, Gabe finally noticed. We were all in the kitchen, me, Ezra, and Gabe, eating takeout straight from the containers, like always. I just made some dumb joke, and Ezra laughed, touching my knee under the table without even thinking. It wasn't much, just a small moment. But Gabe saw it. He didn't say anything right away, just gave me a look. Then gave Ezra a longer one. Later that night, after Ezra had gone out for a run, Gabe knocked on my door. You and my brother, he said, not accusing, not angry, just curious. Is that a thing now? I hesitated. I don't know. Maybe. Gabe leaned against the doorframe. You've been happy lately. I looked down. Yeah? Yeah, he said. It's kind of annoying. I laughed, relieved. Sorry, he shrugged. He's a good guy. Just don't screw each other up, okay? I'll try. And that was that. We didn't have to sneak around after that. We didn't flaunt it either. It was just understood. Normal. Ezra started calling my room our room. Half jokingly at first. Then, without even thinking. He had his own drawer. His own toothbrush. His charger stayed plugged in by my nightstand. One weekend, he went to visit an old friend out of town, and I realized halfway through Saturday that I couldn't sleep without him beside me. That's when I knew. He was supposed to be temporary. Just a favor Gabe asked me to go along with. Just a guy crashing on the couch. But then he became the best part of my day, and now I couldn't imagine the apartment without him. A few weeks later, we were lying in bed, his head on my chest, his hand tracing slow circles on my stomach. "I've been offered a job," he said suddenly. I tensed. "Where?" "Here," he said. "In the city. Close." Relief crashed through me. "That's great," I said. "I was gonna take it either way," he said, "but now I'm taking it because of you." I didn't know what to say to that, so I pulled him closer. He kissed the side of my neck, then whispered, "You're not just a pause in my life. You're the part one want to keep playing." That line wrecked me. I didn't respond with words. I just kissed him like he was already mine. Because by then, he was.